Greetings, everybody. I'm Pastor Joshua Sullivan at Holy Cross Lutheran Church in Kerrville, Texas. Welcome back to another episode of ATP, Ask the Pastor. Today's question, somebody writes in, Dear Pastor, why does St. Paul say in 1 Corinthians 10:8 that 23,000 died when the people of Israel fornicated with the Moabite women, while Numbers 25:9 gives a number of 24,000? Also, how exactly did Korah die? It seems that we can reasonably infer from Numbers 16 that Korah was consumed by the holy fire, whereas Numbers 26:10 seems to indicate that he died by being swallowed up by the earth along with his companions. Thank you for your ministry, and may God bless you very much. Greetings from Colombia. All right, so first, thanks for watching in Colombia. And second, thanks for these questions. It's not uncommon for us as we seriously read through Holy Scripture to come across what we'll call apparent inconsistencies or apparent discrepancies. I think if we look closely at these texts, though, what we're going to see is they're not discrepancies at all. And there's a lot in common between the episode in Numbers 25 and Korah, especially when it comes to how the leaders and how the followers of the rebellion are treated. The Lord punishes the leaders of the rebellion in one way, he punishes the followers in another. And I think this is also going to go a ways to show us or to help us understand why St. Paul cites a different number of people than Moses records. Let's take Korah first, though. So in Numbers chapter 16, Korah, who is a Levite, along with Dathan and Abiram, who are of the tribe of Reuben, they lead a rebellion against Moses. And they have with them 250 leaders of the congregation, representatives of the congregation, men of renown. 16 verse 2. And they argue that since the entire congregation is holy, everyone should be able to serve as priests. It's an Old Testament version of the everyone a minister idea. So Moses tells the rebels to come back the next day to bring a censer for incense for each person, and they'll offer incense before the Lord, and that will the Lord will decide who He has chosen to be His priests. So the next day, Korah and 250 men gathered at the entrance of the tabernacle with their censers to offer incense to the Lord. However, it seems that Dathan and Abiram remain in their tents back in the camp of Reuben. So God at this point then judges the rebels, and he wants to completely destroy them. Moses and Aaron, who are at this point, by the way, the two most despised men in all of Israel, successfully intercede for them, with the exception of the leaders of the rebellion. God promises to punish the men that despised Moses and Aaron, the chief ringleaders of the rebellion, that is. So Moses and Aaron, and probably Korah, make their way from the entrance of the tabernacle to the camp of Reuben, where Dathan and Abiram were. And there Moses foretells that God is going to create a new thing in which he judges them, or through which he judges them. Verse 32 says, The earth then opened its mouth and swallowed them up with their households, and all the men with Korah with all their goods. So they and all those with them went down alive into the pit. The earth closed over them, and they perished from among the assembly. Then all Israel who were around them fled at their cry, for they said, Lest the earth swallow us up also. And a fire came out from the Lord and consumed the 250 men who were offering incense. So Korah, Dathan, and Abiram, they were swallowed up by the earth. But the fire that comes from the Lord comes out from the tabernacle then, and it consumes the 250 men standing at the entrance of the tabernacle offering incense to the Lord. So it isn't Korah and his household and men who are consumed with fire. It's the 250 followers of Korah. Moses also makes this distinction then in verse 10 as well, when he says that Dathan and Abiram, when he says of them, the earth opened up its mouth and swallowed them up together with Korah when that company died. when the fire devoured 250 men, and they became a sign. So the punishments are happening simultaneously or thereabouts. The leaders of the rebellion are punished in one way, swallowed up by the earth, the followers in another, the fire coming out from the Lord from the tabernacle. Now it's worth pointing out that Numbers 26:11 states, "Nevertheless, the children of Korah did not die." So they didn't partake of their father's sins. They lived to continue their father's line. And in fact, from that line of Korah came the Korahite singers of King David's time, from 1 Chronicles 6 and 1 Chronicles 9. So what we have going on here, Scripture isn't recording two different manners of death for Korah. It's recording first the death of Korah being swallowed up by the earth, and then recording the death of his 250 supporters by fire. So that's how we reckon there with the death of Korah. How did Korah die? He was swallowed up by the earth. His followers in rebellion burned by fire. All right, now let's take a look at Israel's fornication with the Moabite women, and therefore their god, Baal Peor, in Numbers 25. So the Lord tells Moses in verse 4, "Take all the leaders of the people and hang the offenders before the Lord out in the sun, that the fierce anger of the Lord may turn away from Israel." Now in the next verse, verse 5, Moses then commands the judges of Israel, "Every one of you kill his men who were joined to Baal of Peor." So here again, we have something similar to God's punishment of Korah's rebellion, in that the leaders of the people who join themselves to the false god, to the idol, they are punished in one way, while those who followed them in their rebellion are punished in another way. Just as Korah's death of being swallowed up alive by the earth and struck fear into the Israelites' hearts, the public hanging of the leaders of this rebellion against God would do the same. So Moses also then tells us that God sent a plague amongst Israel, and that after Phinehas had stopped it by killing the final pair of fornicators, Moses records in 25:9, "Those who died in the plague were 24,000. Now when Paul mentions this episode in 1 Corinthians 10:8, he says, "Nor let us commit sexual immorality as some of them did, and in one day 23,000 fell." All right, so what do we do with this discrepancy? Well, we have got a couple of options, and really we just have one option, but let's look at what some folks want to do with this. So some commentators claim that St. Paul experienced a memory lapse here. He's thinking about the events in Numbers 25, but he's recalling the number taken from the Levitical census in the next chapter, Numbers 26:62. There Moses writes, "Now those who were numbered of them were 23,000, every male from a month old and above." Now, the Nestle Aland critical text of the New Testament suggests this by putting Numbers 25:9 and Numbers 26:62 in the marginal notes to that verse of St. Paul. However, since Paul's writing under divine inspiration and the scripture cannot be broken, this isn't an acceptable answer for us. Another suggestion is that this is a rabbinical practice that St. Paul is using. One commentator suspects that it is a piece of rabbinical refinement, similar to the 40 stripes save one spoken of in 2 Corinthians 11:24. To avoid the risk of exaggeration, it had become the habit, in oral teaching we may suppose, to speak of 23,000 instead of 24,000. Now this speculation, it's speculation, so it's completely worthless to us. It's really no use. Another way of harmonizing the two numbers is to imagine that they're simply round numbers, that neither Moses nor Paul intended to write down the exact number. That was John Calvin's approach. Calvin wrote, "As there were therefore about 24,000 that were overthrown by the Lord's hand," that is, above 23, "Moses has set down the number above the mark, and Paul the number below it, and in this way there's really no difference." The problem with this approach is that if Moses' number is a round figure, then Paul has no reason to diverge from it, and it would have been better to have used the same round number as Moses records. So I think the best way, though, and really the only way, is to remember, like we've said before here, that the leaders are punished in one way, those who follow them in another. This is how Kyle and Dalish see it in their commentary. They write, 1,000 were deducted from the 24,000 who perished, as being the number of those who were hanged by the judges, so that only 23,000 will be killed in the plague. And it is to these alone that Paul refers. So what we're saying then is that 23,000 died of the plague, 1,000 were hanged, totaling in that event 24,000 casualties. Now, in my opinion, I think this is the best way forward to harmonize Paul's use of a different number than Moses. And also, then, it's the best way to demonstrate what we seek to demonstrate whenever we come across one of these alleged inconsistencies or discrepancies in Scripture. And that is what Jesus says, that the Scripture cannot be broken. I hope this helps. If you have something you'd like to ask the pastor, email me, atpholycross@gmail.com. And as always, don't forget to share the video on social media. Give it a thumbs up if you liked it. And if you haven't, hit that subscribe button and the notification bell so you don't miss upcoming episodes of ATP. Until next time, God bless.